All right, welcome to another episode of the Freezin for NFC North Podcast. This is number 3, and this is week 13. I am joined by Gridiron Grubb. How's it going?
Great. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. I am also joined by Cooper, Uneducated Takes. How are you doing?
I'm doing super good. Had a great Thanksgiving. Had a bad
Absolutely.
weekend of football, but we all did. So.
Well, probably the only person that's missing here is Daniele, and she is out this week. The Packers are on a bye, and so really they probably are the only winner of the group. But we can kind of get into that a little bit later. And it is the NFC North as it turns, huh?
Yeah, another week, well, I guess this was a purely down. A lot of times it goes up and down in the NFC North. This one was just straight down for present company. We'll jump right into the Vikings-49ers, which is just an incredible display of mediocrity. Right, you have just... it was interesting because it was somewhat a departure. Usually when... and we saw this, and a lot of people blame the refs for pass interference calls, but no, get out of here. That was not the best officiated game, but they did not swing on the refs. Vikings got a lot of ticky-tack calls as well, and a lot of non-calls too. But usually when Kirk Cousins has an off game, it's a complete disaster, just a train wreck. And it looked like we were on that way, right? Missing open receivers. And I know he put up a really good stat line in the first half, but he made it really hard on his receivers. Like every catch, even wide open ones, were like, Thielen had 4 yards on the sideline on like a 15-yard out, and he had like 2 yards of separation and 4 yards before the end zone, and he had to toe tap it. And it's like, dude, don't make him, don't make him do that. Same thing, he had to reverse direction. And I know Kirk was supposed to kind of throw it behind him on that read, but Thielen had to reverse direction and make it just an incredible catch on a wide open touchdown as well. And so when you have receivers and you're slinging the ball, that does happen sometimes, have receivers of that quality. But no, Kirk Cousins off from the jump. Throws behind, missing throws, and it continued throughout the entire game. And the only difference is, and people on Twitter would tell me he had a good first half. No, he did not. His receivers had an excellent first half. The only difference is they did not bail him out, and he did not throw balls even good enough to be bailed out in the second half. Missing Justin Jefferson in the back of the end zone, missing Justin Jefferson on fourth down, where it's like, oh, pass interference. I mean, kinda, yeah, but it's not going to get called every time. Wasn't egregious. Get over it.
Especially with that bad of a pass.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and that's the old uncatchable, which they don't. Is that not even a rule anymore? Because I haven't seen an uncatchable.
They
in
use
years.
it, but I think it's just got to be as ugly as that one looked. I think.
Yeah, exactly. That was uncatchable. There was no way, and you could see Justin Jefferson visibly frustrated on two separate passes with Kirk Cousins. Not with the call. He wasn't asking for a call. He was screaming into his pillow because of who was throwing him the ball. So yeah, disappointing. I mean, not a terrible game overall. Like the Vikings did a decent job on defense, manufacturing pressure with people who I had to look up on the fly. I had no idea. Number 53 or 50 Smith. No idea. He was not on the team on Tuesday. I can tell you that. And so they're using their deeper bench players who are late round draft picks in the last couple of years. James Lynch is looking pretty good. No Danielle Hunter, no Pierce, no Everson Griffin because he had another breakdown with a gun in his house, and whoever bought him the gun, probably a mistake. And we're all I'm not ragging on the dude, but he was out. He was having a tough time. That happens to him from time to time. Once every couple of years, Everson Griffin's gonna have he has mental issues and he's trying to deal with them. So he was out too. So pretty good at manufacturing pressure, and a lot of help from Garoppolo on just missing receivers. Garoppolo looked just as bad as Cousins, and Garoppolo had a bad game. So it's this is how we're going out. And you hate to lose another game that you return the second half kickoff for a touchdown. That's two times. Just perfect timing. Needed a big play. Once against the Ravens a couple of weeks ago. Needed that bad. Let's go. I want the Vikings to lose a third game with the return kickoff. But Kene Nwangwu is just a insane athlete. Runs like a 4.2, and we need to get him the ball out of the backfield, not just on kick returns, but you got to earn your stripes under a Zimmer defense.
Is he gonna kind of step up, above Madison eventually, or?
He should be a change of pace guy. I think so. I mean, Dalvin's injured again. He's been injured since week 2, and he just hasn't been Dalvin Cook. And this is why you don't pay running backs, even if they're really good guys, even if you like them, even if they're top 5 in the league this year. Christian McCaffrey, right? Oh, incredible running back, great guy, huge locker room guy, like real glue of the team type of fella. It doesn't matter, don't pay him.
Zeke.
Yeah, so now we have 2 more years of Dalvin Cook making a lot of money. Does he come back? Probably. Is he good? Yeah, until he gets the first tweak of his upper or lower body because he doesn't have anything in particular. He just gets injured. But yeah, I think Wong-Woo the ball needs to be put in his hands. And I don't want him to run between the tackles like I would. And Madison's really good on screens too, so it's hard to see that. But I could see like maybe a little end around, maybe a little pistol. No one does the pistol anymore. but yeah, I would like to see Wong-Woo get the ball more. Just because it's fun and he's electric and he runs a 4.2. What do you want? You're an Iowa guy.
Yeah, I almost made a funny joke about Everson Griffin there, but he runs the pistol. Yeah, I mean, this is an important game too. I mean,
huge game.
You know, I mean, really, they've got. It'll really depend. I mean, obviously, we'll talk about the Lions here coming up with Steelers, a winnable game. Mm-hmm. Two games with the Bears are very winnable, depending on whether Fields plays
every year.
Rams and Packers were going to be tough, especially at Green Bay. So, but this one, I mean,
this is the tiebreak.
Yeah,
so we had the tiebreak over Carolina. And Carolina and Philadelphia both have just cakewalk schedules. And the Vikings do not. They have a couple easy games. It gets easier than the previous. The Vikings actually had a pretty tough schedule this year. Not that that's ever an excuse. Just beat winning teams for the love of God. But yeah, this was really this was a turn the season. Like if you fire off a win, LA, Green Bay, and then go out to San Francisco and get another win, all right, we're in. You're up in the 80% to make the playoffs. Really hard to blow it. Now with this loss, setting themselves up perfectly to lose at home to the Bears to not make the playoffs again, which is it just feels like this season on repeat over and over again. See, he's yawning too because he's tired of it. He's tired of it. It's every year where it's we'll go on hot streaks and then cold streaks, never really put together a string of excellent play, never fire off 5 wins in a row, very rarely beat a team that ends up being 500, and when we do, it's usually a weird one we steal against the Packers. It's just mediocre football, and this roster isn't mediocre. So it's something's got to give. Someone's got to. I don't call for jobs. Not that I have a platform that it would matter, but I don't call for jobs because that's messed up. But someone's got to. A change needs to be made this year, and I don't know who it's going to be.
Well, we didn't talk last week about a winner, and someone I had something I found out that you knew for quite a while with Zimmer and who he had been dating.
Big win.
So maybe he just needs to kind of go off in the sunset with was it a former model that he was dating, right?
Yeah, it's a Maxim model. Good for you, Zimmer. Take her back to the ranch, treat her right. But yeah, I mean, and Zimmer has really calmed down in his rhetoric. He's always been one of the spicier coaches, and we definitely saw that coming into the season. Just throwing anyone within arm's reach under the bus, trying to save his job. He's throwing Spielman under the bus. That's his GM. He was throwing his quarterback under the bus. Not the best strategy, even though I loved watching it. It was really fun to watch. Not a great strategy. But yeah, Zimmer's really softened, and he's like, yeah, well, sometimes kickers miss kicks, or, they're really playing it real hard out there, and yeah, we'll get him next Sunday. I think he kind of is winding down himself on his current position in Minnesota, and he's been a good coach. He's always going to be a good coach. But yeah, honestly, I'm a little more... After seeing the way this roster was put together and seeing some of the contracts that were handed out to players like we talked about, like the running back Dalvin Cook, Harrison Smith, excellent safety, but not having a great year because he's 33, and we just signed him to a massive contract, so he's going to be here for 3-4 more years. Congratulations, you'll retire a Viking and ruin the salary cap, just like all your predecessors.
Many others.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I'm more of I've been disappointed with Spielman's performance, and the only thing that's redeeming about it recently is seeing some of his late round draft picks on the defensive line step up in these last few weeks. And it took couple of years to get them there, like 2-3 years apiece. But it's like some of them I can barely remember their names. I already told you about Litch. Armon Watts, I think it's like his 4th year. He's okay as a 3 tech, stepping up as a backup role. They drafted a kid, Willie Keys, really impressive, right? And that's a 4th round draft pick. So like, if those guys start to hit again like they did in the past, like hitting on a Diggs or hitting on a Cook in the 2nd round, or hitting on a left tackle franchise or right tackle, hitting on a franchise right tackle in the 2nd round or the 3rd round in O'Neal. If he starts to hit on those again, Spielman will save his job. But right now, it's not a great, like, it's a talented roster, but it's not cohesive. But it's everyone's fault. I'll leave it at that. Everyone's fault that the Vikings are mediocre.
Yeah, it's kind of a tough spot to be in, because when you talk about the draft and stuff and like getting some of the top talent, you either want to be really bad or really good, and not just mediocre. I mean, I guess kind of going to really bad. I guess we can kind of transition into whatever that was on Thanksgiving. The Bears-Lions comedy of errors. What did you see on that game, since you watched the whole thing and you were captive with that, Grubb?
Well, again, there wasn't much to miss and there wasn't much to watch, but it had its moments that could have gone better. But I guess, for the Lions, it went like a Lions game, and it's gone that way this entire season. So play close, have some look good on a drive, right? When Goff throws the touchdown to obviously, and I think this guy, if people better watch him in fantasy this year coming up in the end, is Reynolds at receiver, because again, this guy's he's got practice squad guys that he's been playing with. Now Reynolds was obviously like a 3rd wide in LA with him, but he could be a possible 2nd on a team and that guy who can stretch the field like he did in that touchdown. But again, Lions either start out with some momentum and then they just kind of struggle to lose it. Obviously, they could have gone up 14-0 in this game, and they blow it. And the Bears were going to struggle all game with Andy Dalton, it looked like, at quarterback. I'm not sure they're struggling to switch between those quarterbacks, it looks like to me. When you have Fields on the field, it's different. And when you have Dalton on the field, it's different. So it looked like the Lions kind of had their number on defense early, and the Lions could have made something of it. But, of course, they didn't, because they're the Lions. And maybe a rant in a little while, obviously, of Dan Campbell calling plays. But that going on is really, really, really hindering the Lions. How do you feel about your Bears? Because it wasn't much on either side, to be honest.
Right. Yeah. And you talk about, just that not going between the different quarterbacks. And a lot of it is, the play calling and, just the, preparing for, what, actually, Matt Nagy trying to decide between, does he want to win a game or does he want to develop Fields? And they just don't know how to, really game plan, for both. It's just kind of, they just don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they are. And that's, squarely on Nagy and squarely on, a lot of it's offensive line as well. I mean, I just looking at the game and I told you I was just kind of like, almost, watching it here and there. And it's kind of like, watching it through my fingers, what's going to happen, and I just didn't know what to think. I'm like, do I root for them to win? Yeah, I want the Bears to win, do well, but you didn't see much, and you shouldn't have to go down to, last second field goal to beat the Lions, and Nagy was really celebrating that, right? He was.
Well, yeah, he said it was one of the biggest wins of the season. And if the Lions is one of the biggest wins of the season, you're in trouble.
Yeah, is that the 4th win? Not that many, I guess. Are you kidding me? Not against the Bengals week 2? Come on. That was
right.
I mean, to say that it's the biggest win, I mean, if any team beating the Lions is not the biggest win of the season, I don't care how many wins, unless it was 0 wins that the Lions have, then that's the biggest win. I get it. But yeah, it was shocking. The way he was saying it as a biggest win was like it was putting them in the playoffs. Like it was this big monumental kind of rah win.
And that's the problem, I think, now is, and it sounds like kind of in the locker room, that's what he's trying to hold on to, that,
right.
Well, we're still in it, we're still in it. And that's, a football coach, you need to do that, but they're not in it.
And I know you're, because we've been doing this cast now for a month or so, and I know you're not in on Nagy, and you're kind of hoping for it. It really sways the decision for folks when you go, you're like for the locker room, basically, like you're celebrating a field goal win over the Lions as if we're some type of champion. And then it also shows coaching skills. Like I say, when you can't go from Dalton and have a game plan to Fields and have a game plan. I mean, when you look at the great coaches in the league, even when they hit to their backup quarterback, even if it's a different type of scheme, you can see different type of coaching. Mm-hmm. And if you look at the Saints game last night with Sean Payton, he struggled with that. And usually he's pretty good when he brings in a different style of quarterback. But going to that, that Fields where they can run, where you can do this different type of offense, and then you go to a Dalton, it shows your coaching skills. And I think it really exposed him this week. So it might actually help you even though they won. Yeah. I think it was kind of an exposure to say, Look what we're not getting from him. Like, he literally can only beat the Lions by a field goal. Andy Dalton was supposed to be a starter. He was champion Andy Dalton at the beginning of the season. Well, if you can't win, if you're celebrating wins and then you couldn't win really at the beginning of the season with Dalton before the injury happened, I just think he's kind of exposed himself, if you ask me. But that's...
Yeah, and on that more also, Sean Payton having to choose between Trevor Siemian and a tight end, is like a 32-year-old
kind of a gadget
athletic
player.
Tight end.
He unfortunately for Taysom Hill, he kind of looked like he's got throwing accuracy of Tim Tebow.
Yeah,
except
Tim Tebow's a great comp.
Yeah, except he can, Hill can actually run. Tebow could move he was more of a do the run up the middle type thing. Yeah. Hill can actually, get out and run and scramble, but they weren't. You could tell Sean Payton, he didn't set him. So it was a short week. They should have waited a week if they were going to do that, because then you can put in an offense that matches Hill. Hill can't do that Saints offense that Drew Brees was running, and even Jameis Winston. These guys drop back throw, but kind of the same thing with what's happening in Bears land.
Yeah, speaking of kind of what's happening in Bears land, and they talked about, with the game that even Cole Kmet had, admitted that it was a distraction, the whole thing with, Nagy, whether, the report came that he would be fired, this would be his last game. And the biggest, the comedy of errors there was, that basically the news broke of this and they didn't want to substantiate it by answering it. But the first person who had to answer it was the special teams coach Chris Tabor. And so that's what after practice, they kind of had him be the one to kind of the first one. I mean, if you have any leadership within your organization, you want to have the head coach or owner, someone else, or even Ryan Pace, whereas he had to actually address it, in that just
they threw him out to get slaughtered for sure.
They
totally
picked the sacrifice and threw him out there. Yeah. Although, most of these teams turn to the special teams coordinators and coaches to become interim head coaches when things are on so maybe they were preparing a little something here for the next few weeks down the road. So you never know.
That's possible. But yeah, the messy thing is, they even had, they had George McCaskey, had come down into the locker room on Wednesday to clear things up and say, no, they're not going to be fired. And the Bears have never fired a coach in their history, as we all know, during the season. And so it's just, so weird. And of course, they're very family oriented, within that, Hallis Hall. So they weren't going to do it on Thanksgiving weekend. And then it didn't happen, so at Friday, and then it didn't happen Monday. So it hasn't happened yet. It's almost like you kind of just like, I don't know, like a girlfriend, there's going to be a breakup, or, something's going to happen. You just know,
Still got the lease together.
Right.
Well,
or you want to give your 2 weeks notice, but you're just like, I don't want to give my 2 weeks. And then when you do, it's like, okay, so those type of things, it's just like,
well,
just
I
do
think,
it.
I think you hit on a great point of how saying, well, Cole Kmet came out and said that it was a distraction. Well, that, again, another huge teller, because this team didn't come out like if the team was behind him and they were like, I love this coach and I want to play for this coach. They were playing the Lions and they could have come out and knocked the living crap out of the Lions and played with fire and passion. And they didn't do that. So if the players were saying in the locker room, like, hey, is he going to get fired? Most of the time, if players are behind that coach, whether he's a lame duck or not, they're like, hey, let's go out, kick some ass for this guy. Let's get this thing done, and like make him look good. And they're playing the Lions, so they should come out fired up. Hey, we should beat this lowly team, but they didn't. So there's another signal to me that maybe he's even lost the locker room because they didn't. If the players were like, this is a distraction instead of a, hey, let's go out and kick some butt type thing, I think maybe that's another thing you're looking at there too. So
yeah, they're just using it as an excuse instead of exactly, right. Which means they don't really have the confidence in him. Like, oh yeah, that was really distracting.
That was distracting.
Like normally, if they were behind him and he had the room, they just wouldn't even heard it.
There's just so much momentum. With all of the chance at even his son's football game. I think there's just so much momentum that I don't know how you can keep him there. It'll be interesting. The biggest thing, kind of going back and forth, on Chicago radio, is Ryan Pace. Does he keep his job? And because he was kind of tethered to him with everything, and the biggest thing too is it sounds like that Justin Fields was more of a Nagy pick than a Ryan Pace pick,
right?
And so that's kind of interesting. Do you keep Ryan Pace around, and get rid of the person who wanted the quarterback? But the other thing too, and this is a crazy, I don't know, possibility, but they have kind of a finance guy, Ted Phillips, in charge of the football operations. And so Chicago radio really wants to push to have more football people in the facility. And so like they want the possibility of having Ryan Pace actually promoted to president of football operations and then bring in another GM, but still get rid of get rid of Nagy,
right?
And
just like Boston basketball there. Head coach got promoted, but if they were winning, he probably wouldn't have gotten promoted.
Well,
and it reminds me of that Seinfeld episode, when Elaine just kept promoting that. I'm not sure if you saw Seinfeld. She just kept promoting this guy that she didn't like, and it's like
she was trying to get rid of him.
Yes,
and she didn't want him coming into
So it's a complete mess. And, there's, some different names. They're kind of thrown out there. Trace Armstrong, he's an agent. Actually, he's actually the agent of both Brian Kelly and Lincoln Riley, by the way, and former Bear defensive end.
Well, they're taken.
What's that? Oh, no.
Well,
they're taken. Right. They're taken. But so he's the agent of those two coaches, Trace Armstrong, the former Bears defensive end. There's talk that they would like him, or at least people in the media would like him to be the next director of football operations for the Bears. And then then he would have at least, some knowledge and everything of, what things were like. And then he would bring in a general manager and a coach. It's just, it's a mess. They just don't know what they're doing, unfortunately.
Yeah. To me, that's a sign where you say, just cut loose. Just start fresh, because now they're trying to do all these things. They're building too many mountains over here. Molehills, and pretty soon that's all going to come collapsing down, and then you're going to screw up a really prominent franchise. If you let all this get too far gone. Again, you have so many teams that this happened to in the league that have been great teams before in the 70s, 80s, 90s. And now this is kind of the stuff that happened to them. They let too many things get, behind the scenes things take front, row, and then here you are. And unfortunately, I don't want, I'm a Lions guy in this podcast, but I don't want to see the Bears end up in that type of situation where they're in a Lions situation where you let somebody come in and destroy your franchise years ago. and then you're digging from the bottom for 20 years.
and they're a promising destination right now, because if you clear house and you get rid of both, I mean, they probably the drafting hasn't been bad, though, I will say. No. The drafting, the roster construction has been okay, but the drafting in particular, they've hit, and it's a crapshoot. I'm a draft nihilist, but the Bears' Ryan Pace has hit on a lot of high draft picks recently. But yeah, they're a desirable place for a head coach. It's like, boom, we got a excellent, talented wide receiver, both really, quarterback and a couple of wide receivers. I guess probably one after this season. But still, I mean, it's not a bad. You can get someone to buy into that.
Well, yeah, and especially with the a promise of having a new stadium and all that kind of out there. It's a very.
Oh, is that happening?
Well, they bought the land, so they have the land. They can either sell it or develop, and so that obviously makes the team more valuable, all around, and I think that would be nice. That would be kind of a nice, just to kind of bring the team, obviously more revenue, but into just a
Soldier Field is a travesty of a football stadium.
There's no more Soldier Field UFO anymore, like.
Though I'm gonna miss the grass as much as it has ruined seasons for the Vikings.
Yeah.
Just the fact that grass exists in the NFL, and that they're out there in the winter in Chicago just like desperately trying to keep this together. Yeah, I will miss that grass if they build a new stadium.
That field is even injured. I mean, it's even ruined some of their own.
Yeah.
Some of their own players in promise during some promising seasons.
Oh my God.
Well, speaking of kind of, not a promising season, I mean, the Lions, I mean, they've got a, obviously they're on track to be the number one pick, right? I mean,
hopefully,
right.
Hopefully they don't blow that. Hopefully the Vikings don't help them out this weekend.
It's possible. It's certainly possible. Yeah, it's going to be, I'm afraid it's going to be close. I'd like to say it's going to be a blowout because, usually when Mike Zimmer is coaching for his job, he pulls some crazy crap out and they win. But no, it's probably going to be close. Let's be honest.
Well, I guess I had one question kind of before we get into that. Did you guys know that it's a penalty for back-to-back timeouts?
Oh, did that happen again? It did happen again, didn't it?
The Lions.
The Lions.
My God. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what basically cost them the game at the end of the game. And
I know where that goes.
This was where I was going with my Campbell rant, because
we can get
go right in.
If that's, are we good?
Go right in.
Yeah,
because this is what I'm talking. So the play calling, he's never called plays in his entire career. In fact, he had the interim job in Miami, but he's really more of a strength and conditioning kind of linebackers, kind of offensive line type of coach guy.
He's a player's coach.
Coach. But he's never called plays, and so to take over this play calling, and their offense wasn't like looking great before. Obviously it wasn't, but it was kind of viable. It was getting some of the job done with not much talent.
They don't have NFL personnel. They don't have an NFL personnel offense. So yeah, it would make sense that they're not doing well. But it was like okay, this looks like an NFL offense, just like with checkers pieces.
Yeah. Like we have 4 receivers, and we've got some offensive linemen, and we've got a tight end, and a running back and a quarterback, and we've got that out there on the field so we can play the game. And so that's kind of where they've been at. But Dan Campbell came in, and now it looks like NFL team with Pop Warner offense. It's so bland, and it's so sad, and it's got nothing in it. There's no most coaches are trying to set up the big play or set up something, and there's just none of that going on. And then going back to this back-to-back timeout problem is he's a rookie head coach. He has all of this on his plate as it is for the first time in his life. And I know he's interim with the Dolphins, but this is a different gig. When you're interim, there's people helping you in a lot of different areas that they aren't when you are the actual head coach.
Not as much pressure at all.
Yes,
also.
And there's pressure, and there's just much more to deal with during a week-to-week basis, where when you're an interim coach, kind of everybody comes together in a whole and says, hey, I'm usually this type of coach or this, and they all kind of mix and match, and they're helping each other in different departments. Well, when you're the head coach, you're the head coach, and now he's got too much on his plate. He can't even pay attention during the game, which he kind of, again, not that their offense might have come down and won the game with him calling the plays, but he really lost the game with the back-to-back timeout. Mm-hmm. So it gives them a first down, and that's game. And so
well, if it makes you feel better, Mike Zimmer on defense, one of the greatest defensive play callers of our generation, and having 7 years under his belt as a head coach, did it not twice, but it might as well have been twice this year as well.
But in those games, like we're talking like in some of those mistakes he made, we're talking about high pressure games that meant something. We're talking about Dan Campbell wants to play, it's like the people that they say they're like, he wants to play house, they want to play house. So, they're young and they had a kid because they want to play house. Like he's kind of coaching I can't see the conversation that he had with Lynn when Lynn's calling the offense and he goes up to him and says, hey, you know what? Next week I'm taking over. I mean, could you imagine this coach like Anthony Lynn, who's been in the league for a long time calling plays? I don't know how that conversation even went, and the face that he probably made after Campbell walked out of the room. So I think with this, not only he's good with the players' side, but I think he might have burned some coaches' side by doing that, by stripping that away. Like if he was some amazing, you see this happen in other teams, the head coach who was a great play caller and the offense is struggling, so he takes over duties, right, calling the plays. But he was usually like a coordinator, and then he's become a head coach. And that's not what's happening here. So it drives me crazy. And Campbell being a rookie coach, he's put too much on his plate. He can't even pay attention to the things that matter in a game because he's trying to think up some diabolical offensive scheme over there.
Does he get another year?
Yeah, I mean, come on, they're not gonna go a different direction now. You can't. I mean, he also hasn't had the chance to coach anybody really. Let's be honest. I mean, these guys are in the NFL, but he hasn't. It's hard though to say when you lose all your games that you get your job back. That's hard to say. But I do think because of how he has the presence in the locker room, almost the opposite of what we're talking about with Nagy, because the Lions suck. But they come out and play every week, and they play teams that are good. The Rams, the Vikings, they play these teams that have playoff things, and these teams are not just destroying them like they should because the Lions come out with heart and play, which means Campbell's got some backing there in the players. And that's key to right now when you're building something. So that's, you have to look for that. Does he stay? I think so. He's obviously going to get one more year. But hopefully that doesn't lead into him calling plays next year. I think that if Anthony Lynn is not the answer there, then they've got to find a better offensive answer as a play caller. But
that's pretty clearly an interim. It doesn't have an interim tag on it, but Anthony Lynn has a very long record of pretty mediocre offensive play calling. Like he can do it, and he's done well. But that always felt like, oh yeah, he's a guy and he's not going to mess this up.
Well, kind of like the offense that they have on the field, right? It's we need an offensive coordinator. Still, like Dan Campbell to go in and be like, nah, now I'm the offensive coordinator. It's like this is the NFL. Like if you wanted to practice, maybe he should coach like a kids team, like a fall or a summer. Flag football so he can practice his offensive play calling. And then, I don't think you should practice when you're doing it in the professional sport. It's like he wanted to practice being a play caller or something. Yeah. So he took over. I don't know, but he's put too much on his plate, and it's made the Lions worse, if that's even feasible.
And maybe that was the idea. Maybe it's just they got a lot of draft picks. Lions got a lot of draft picks.
I don't know how the conversation went in the room. Yeah. Because for Anthony Lynn, who's, like I say, a respected coach in the league, for a guy who's never called plays to come in and say, hey, I'm doing this now and you're out, there must have been some type of conversation where they were like, hey, let's get him some more, coaching reps, basically. Like
it does feel like practice, and you said that, and it kind of clicked in my mind. I was like, he was just practicing, wasn't he?
Yeah.
It's funny. No,
Because he has no scheme. There's no like real scheme there.
No,
like if
no,
you
there's
watch
no,
him
there was,
play,
yeah, no.
It's totally guesswork during the game. You know, a lot of these other coaches are like scripting 15 plays, and they've got 20 plays scripted, and they're setting up this whole scheme. And like Campbell, it's like he comes out, and it's kind of like playing some guys on Madden, if you've ever done that, and they're like they run the same play over and over, like, but they have like a 4-play repertoire, but they kind of run it a little different maybe, and like that's kind of him. He's like, well, this didn't, you know, I ran the fake jet sweep, and now I'll run the jet sweep. You know, like 3 plays ago. That's like he's like, they didn't hand it off, so now they're going to be fooled. But there's no like extra motions, and there's no like different formation or anything. It's just kind of like
pre-snap motion is something that gets ignored all the time in the NFL. And I don't know how you can be an NFL play caller and not incorporate pre-snap. Actually, all of our teams do a terrible job. And it's like, how is that? Like, this is like elite, like you're making millions of dollars, and this is clearly beneficial by any metric you measure it by, and people just don't.
Well, by the way, all the teams, all 3 teams sitting here have benefited from having really good running backs who break through gaps or break a tackle and make a play out of it. And it makes the offense look like it's actually working really well. You know, DeAndre Swift has made the Lions offense at times look, oh, this is actually a pretty good running offense. I'm like, well, only because he is super amazing. Like if you look at it, he breaks a tackle or he reads a gap that wasn't like where the play was going. And so it makes the offense look better than it actually is. And that's where I'm at with my Campbell Lions rant.
Well, it's kind of been like that for a while with the Lions. I mean, even back to like Barry Sanders, you know, I mean, you get, so, you know, so like kind of getting into the NFC North epic showdown this week, right? The Vikings-Lions. What are some keys to this game? Yes, I agree.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
Wow, get this kid a microphone.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. Oh boy, keys to the matchup. God, just well,
scoring more points.
Scoring more, yeah. And I was reading this actually before the game. The Vikings have just do not score a lot, do not blow players out, do not blow teams out, and in the Mike Zimmer era are ranked like 28th in 40-point games. Like they have like 2 or 3, and other teams have like 12, 13, 14, 40-point games. Yeah, scoring more points. And I would also say just not messing it up and keeping the foot on the gas, right? It's not going to be an easy game. It never is, like, except on a previous head coach's watch, who we don't need to get into that, Matt Patricia. But Dan Campbell does know how to put they're putting a decent defense out there right now. The Lions, they're not just playing single high against Kirk Cousins in the play action, right? Yeah, for a couple of years here, they were playing single high in the play action and watching Kirk Cousins shred them. And so that's not happening anymore. So that's an interesting development that they finally figured that out. It took a while. But it's about the little things and executing the details, which sounds very coach speaky. You know what I mean? It's just do your job. Just do your job. Win this game, or you know what, lose it. I don't care. I'm pretty unsold right now. Here, and I'll let you take it over so I can get this little prick out of my room.
Well, like I kind of feel like it's almost just like he's saying, but as from the Lions side, it is going with the coachy speak because everybody's again. We just ranted on Campbell, so everybody's learning. Everybody's learning how to. Basically play on the Lions team. So they've got a team that's got to come. I mean, this could be the week. It really could, because you never really know with the Vikings. The Vikings have really sometimes come off a loss like we saw the week prior, and they come down to a letdown game. So when the Vikings sometimes lose, you kind of see this real letdown the next week. And if you're a Lions fan, that's what you're kind of hoping for, because I really think this could be the one win. But I also think this game has two outcomes. And that is it either ends up like the Lions-Steelers, where like everybody, because the Vikings have been known to come out and play like that, and the Lions have proven that each week they're literally going to play this. Can they win by a field goal and somehow blow it or end in a tie type game? And I think this could end like that Steelers game because the Vikings can get themselves sometimes in that mode of, no, we don't want to win. Do you want to win? And the Vikings and the Lions are like, well, we don't really want to win. And so they'll miss their overtime field goals and, those type of things. So it could end like that. And I could also see, I know the Vikings don't usually blow people out in the Zimmer era, but I could see this one if the Vikings come out pissed from last week and they want to play for a playoff spot. It just depends what that type of team you're going to see. If they come out like that, there's no reason they shouldn't stomp on the Lions. Kind of like we were saying that if the Bears really cared about Nagy in the locker room, they would have stomped the Lions.
Yeah.
And if the Vikings want a playoff spot, they can come out and stomp the Lions. But I'm not sure if that happens.
And Zimmer does have a lot more pull in that locker room than Nagy does. That's kind of his specialty. Is he's not like a player's coach because he just pisses players off all the time, but he does know how to get his team ready to play every week, which has always been surprising. Even in down seasons where it's been like, oh, this is it, like 1-4, 1-5, and then boom, out of the bye week, fire off a couple wins. My prediction is actually the latter. If you put a gun to head, I think this is a Vikings blowout. But it could easily just be like a 16-13 loss. Like it could, like Kirk. If Kirk has one of those games, he doesn't usually have two in the row. It's the Kirk coaster, right? It's not the Kirk like linear plane. So he is an up and down quarterback. But it could. Go ahead. Yeah.
My question is how does the Lions defensive backfield matchup? I mean, you got Thielen, you've got Jefferson. I mean,
poorly.
Those are mismatches all the time.
At the same time, how do they match up against Kupp, Woods, this Rams offense? And they did it. They did it for three quarters. They couldn't do it for four. And that's kind of how I feel in this game is the Lions can come out for 3 quarters on a team like this against the Vikings. And when it's a different team, and that's why I say if the Vikings are in that mode where they play like crap,
you'll know in the first drive.
That's what I'm saying. So then the Lions are hanging around there in the fourth quarter, and we might have one of those weird endings. Mm-hmm. But the Lions have been known that all season they've shut down some good receiving cores, but it's usually only 3 quarters, or you have to have that other team playing like crap. And
and you'll know right away too. If Kirk Cousins plants his foot and throws like a 30-yard dime on the opening drive, it's already game over. If he throws it 6 yards to Conklin on a 3rd and 10, then it's probably going to be a long day.
For the Lions, I'm looking for him, to get this one win to look like he looked in the Browns game. If we can get the Kirk Cousins from the Browns game, then the Lions, even with their crappy play calling and their crappy offense, might actually accidentally fall into a win.
Myles Garrett is helpful in that respect.
Well, yeah, but
it doesn't need to be, though. It doesn't need to be.
No,
we've shown anyone.
He looked really bad against the Browns. That was one of those games. I'm sure if you're a Vikings fan, you're going, "This is why I hate Cousins."
It's really easy to do. I fall into the Kirk Cousins Kirk Cousins hate wagon so very, very often because he's just a hateable fella. that's beyond the point. Yeah, and you're looking for pressure up the middle, pressure on the outside. I think we're going back up left tackle this week. Hill, serviceable left tackle, but a backup through and through. So if you can get pressure, if you can fluster Cousins at all, Dalvin Cook is out. The offensive line, they got real fat on the offensive line, but they didn't get real good on the offensive line.
Yeah, they're not
so the pass blocking. Yeah, exactly. We lost our athletic guards, and we're still bad in pass protection. So it's like, man. And I was calling for it too. But just stop making tackles guards for the love of God. But sorry, we have 2 tackles, 2 left tackles as guards.
With the Vikings defense, and they're, of course they're banged up on the line and all that. This might be the week that they actually get some extra good work because, again, going back to the Dan Campbell, not only does he make bad play calls, he doesn't know how to.
If Campbell's calling it, Zimmer's going to eat him alive.
Well, and that's what I say. Not only with the other coaches on the other side of the field, but he calls plays that don't benefit Jared Goff. Like you got to know your quarterback, and he does these wild play actions that don't have Goff like rolling out on the play action. It's like play action and stand there, so you they do these play actions up the middle and then Goff turns straight around. That's, Tom Brady does that. Jared Goff doesn't. Jared Goff doesn't do that. That's not his strength.
Kirk Cousins does that a lot too, actually. Not to mention it.
Yeah. So now by them doing that, that's not going to get the job done. And the Lions might feast, or the Vikings might feast on that this week because again, when he runs these stupid play calls and then tries to set up this play action pass on 3rd and 6 when the defense is already coming after you, and he does this weird play action where Goff's only 5 yards in the backfield and he turns to find a receiver and that's not him.
And he's already behind because it's a play action.
Correct.
Yeah. But I don't know. So there's a couple. So one thing I know about the Vikings secondary is they're just slow as hell. Every single player, was Robert Woods the fastest? Maybe, I don't know. The second best safety. So we were talking about Raymond earlier. And Goff is he's a
Reynolds
NFL quarterback. God damn it.
Yeah.
So it was Josh Reynolds. Yeah, he's
Reynolds. I'm sorry.
But I'm just saying, that's it. And we're talking about a guy who, like I say, he couldn't even make it on the Titans team who has no receivers. They literally...
But he torched the Vikings on
did.
on the Titans team.
They literally waived him.
Yeah.
And they're out of receivers.
Yeah. His career game is a 2-touchdown perforance against the Vikings, though. He won the game in the 4th quarter. 2 massive bomb touchdowns against the Vikings
this is
last
the week.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this is the week.
I was gonna, you bring up Goff. He's an interesting case. He did really well that one year. I don't know, a few games or whatever, and you wonder if he is just a product of his poor play. I mean, product of coaching as well, because McVay, he didn't want him there, right? He wasn't his guy, and being in Detroit, it sounds like he's not being utilized properly. They're not playing to his strengths, and you just hate to see that. I mean, you hate to see an NFL quarterback who has potential, just not be used properly, and then I don't know if part of it's confidence or whatever, and whatever.
I also think in it. I mean, everybody's so high on McVay. I'm kind of a guy who I respect what he did at a young age, the head coach and all that. But look what's going on there. He's got a very predictable offense too, and if you can run the 2 high safeties and shut that stuff down,
that's the way to beat outside zone.
Matthew Stafford for 3 weeks has looked no better or no different than Jared Goff ever did at the Rams.
And that's what Matthew Stafford does, by the way. And I want to say I called that on multiple podcasts and live shows. Is that and McVay? I feel bad for him away because he's getting Stafford. He is getting Stafford so good.
But he wanted that.
Wanted him. I'm not trying to win trades. I'm trying to win Super Bowls.
This guy is the greatest. I mean, Jared Goff sucks, and I want this guy. And Matthew Stafford looks no better than Jared Goff. Nope. But it's because of McVay's. They call the same plays every week. And after 5 and 6 weeks of teams getting film, now we're at that point, and the last teams they've played the whole passing game is shut down for them. And he refuses to run the football to set up the pass. So I'm just saying, Goff was really, I don't know how necessarily of this guru mind of offense McVay is. Not to knock on a guy, but everybody knocked on Goff, but nobody's ever said anything about McVay. And I'm here saying it because I just think watching these last 2 seasons, it looks the same. They started out on fire with Goff last year. They were like, this team's going to be amazing, and then Goff kind of slowed down, but so did that offense. And we're looking at the same kind of progression this year. So Goff kind of got screwed in that. And now he's on the Lions
that's really interesting. Because I was over here thinking, and I was going to say that Goff is one of those, middle class of quarterbacks, and he's on the bottom of that middle class, I would say, that is subject to their environment. Right. Whereas and Goff is 100 because he's never won a game outside of McVay. Literally 0 game wins. Yeah. But he is subject to his environment, and so when you're in 2018 and you have the best offensive line and you have an MVP caliber running back and you got a coach who people haven't figured out yet, right? And I wonder how much McVay was along for the ride with that excellent offensive line, right?
Oh yeah,
good receivers.
Well, and by the way, the defense and the defensive coordinator were the number one in the league. So that also helps.
Yeah, that helped a lot. Yeah, Walt was it? Who was it? What was his name?
The older guy, and he was coach of the Texans.
He's been around forever too.
Yeah, God, that's sad.
I want to say Bill Walsh, but it's completely wrong.
I'm like love football guru and coaches, and I can't remember. I'm looking at his
Bill
face
Walsh is
through my
dead,
eyes
so.
right now.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No. Absolutely. Bill Walsh. Yeah. Exactly.
So there was benefits there, and Goff is definitely not getting benefits this year. It's not like, yes, this team's playing hard for Campbell, but they don't have the talent on the field to win much at all in the NFL. You've got to have some luck each week for this to happen, and they're not getting the luck for them to win. They could have had some of these games. The Lions season would look a lot differently if some of this luck had gone their way.
Big time.
Missed field goals, a weird fumble here and there, or a weird, call, or a weird, pass interference. They've had everything. Everything. They kind of set them up bad luck to lose a game.
And they could have hit their Vegas number. Honestly, if a couple of things go the other way, they could have.
Well, that's what I'm saying. They could actually be at 3-4, and if they played some games that they could actually be at 5 wins. I mean, they literally, seriously could in some of the
one play.
Lost.
Yeah, every single game, one play away from.
So but again, this week I think that. Hopeful, but it's going to take either, like I say, the Lions right now, it either takes an extraordinarily bad game from the team they're playing or a really lucky play where the team, gets something good and luck happens. But,
both the Vikings are prone to both those. They're prone to no-show and they're prone to step on their own dick. For sure.
On that note, it was Wade Phillips, right?
Wade Phillips. Oh,
God damn. I was staring at his face like coaching on the defense forever. And
that was a hell of a year by Wade Phillips.
Kid.
Yeah. Oh my God. His kid.
Yeah.
Bum Phillips. Bum Phillips was the Eagles coach who punched the guy in the face. On the sideline.
And Houston, was he Houston Oilers coach too, right?
Yeah. And
I had to revisit that. I was too young at the time.
Oh, well, it's before my time too. I'm not. Yeah. I've seen the replays and the things, but that's just how it is. But yeah, that's Goff just hasn't benefited from, I think, anybody around him except for that one. And a lot of people look at Nick Foles. Look at what was the Ravens quarterback that won with them?
Flacco.
Well, Flacco, but before him.
He's like the classic. He's the one everyone mentions when they say Kirk Cousins could win a Super Bowl.
Yeah. I swear to God, he had like a 5-yard. Average of passing. They had the Ray Lewis and Ed Reed defense and all that. Same with Flacco, because that same defense was there, but it was right before Flacco came. For some reason I want to say Rich Gannon, but it wasn't Rich.
Gannon. Trent Dilfer. Trent Dilfer. There we go. Yeah, no, that Trent Dilfer is the example of your quarterback can too get to win a Super Bowl.
And that's why I feel for Goff, because again, if you can just get on a team like this, team's not fit for him. Goff would fit great on like a Tennessee Titans. Look at Tannehill, right?
Oh yeah,
they were trying to put all this passing and real crazy play action and all of this reading the field on him, and then when he went to the Titans. And you hand the ball off and you do play action and you roll out of the pocket. That's Goff. When the Rams were playing like that with him, he did well. He wasn't the greatest quarterback ever, but he was really good for the Rams for that offense. Then when McVay got more into this elaborate reading the scheme in the field and all those things, Goff went down. And then this year he doesn't have, again, we're making up plays as we go.
Yeah, you're not getting like a Mike linebacker on a fast wide receiver on a wheel route. Anymore. Yeah, exactly.
There's no setup. There's no setting up and motion in the back out of the backfield and having him run like a bow and arrow route, and out and in, and there's none of that going on. There's just There's just like line up, fake play action. There's 2 curl patterns on the outside, and the tight end goes down the middle. And if they cover
you got to hit 2 impossible throws, down the middle.
Or get sacked.
Yeah, exactly. More likely. That's great stuff.
Speaking of I guess maybe one winner and maybe some toe curls or one of the best quarterbacks ever. Maybe the winner of this week is Aaron Rodgers' toe. they
on this podcast it is.
Right on this podcast.
This week, this here, yes.
You got to bring it up, obviously, not having Danielle here, you got to at least get a little bit of Packer stuff in, and it's still their division to win, right?
Yeah, and they got the bye week, rest that toe up, and we're looking forward to the Packers getting back on the field. Are we really? No, we're probably not.
You were trying there. That was good.
I mean, it went well for about 20 seconds there. That was good.
Yeah.
No, the Packers are going to make the playoffs. The Packers are going to win the division.
Yeah, I mean, the Packers are in, let's be honest, the Packers are in the playoffs.
Yeah. And the toe doesn't seem to be bothering them.
No, it doesn't. And
more painful than turf toe bullshit.
Yeah. Well, they're injecting him with whatever they're injecting him with. So.
Oh yeah, bunch of the really good, healthy stuff that I'm sure he approves of because he did all his research on it. Well, he's popping painkillers on the side.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, that's. I mean, everybody wants to pretend that they're not. Taking the painkillers. I mean, you look at these guys. You look at some of these injuries that happen. They go on the blue tent and 3 minutes later, they come out and they're running better than they were when they limped off the field in excruciating pain. I forget who it was. It was 3 weeks ago. This defensive lineman got hurt and he was on the ground screaming in pain.
Yeah.
Screaming in pain. And then literally the next defensive series, he was out there again. I'm like, wait, that guy looked like they're going to have to cart him off the field. He was holding his knees, screaming at the top of his lungs.
I remember that.
Oh, no, you know what? It's the Dolphins quarterback.
Yeah, it was Tua.
It was Tua. Wow.
No, it was when Tua was hurt.
No, it was the other guy. Sorry.
No, what
am I doing?
He played for the Colts.
Brissett, there we go.
Yeah,
Geno Smith and Brissett are pretty much the same.
Brissett got hit on a sack, and he went down, and he's literally. They show the replay of him in his face mask, and he's screaming, ah! And then he goes in the blue tent, and 3 minutes later, he's ready to play quarterback again.
Maybe that's what the blue tent's for. They said it was for privacy, but they're like, no, we can't. Then they're just back there, just emptying the pill bottle.
So what was happening? I totally believe that because they were always having to take these guys to the locker room and do that.
Yeah.
And it took so long, right? They were out for a whole quarter because you got to go back there, and now they can just go to that tent, flip it over, pop them in, and they're ready to go.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Someone's got to write a book eventually about a blue tent story.
The blue tent, the children's book, the little blue
saga.
Tent. That's great stuff.
So.
All right, folks. Well, we're looking forward to just another blessed for another week of football. The season is just storming. It seems like the 17 games makes it seem so much longer, and I'm ready for it. Yeah, I'm ready for this week. I'm ready to play the Lions. I don't care what anyone says. Ready to watch some football. Yep.
Absolutely. It's been fun, guys. So, look forward to next week, and hopefully next week we'll have Danielle back as well.
Oh, yeah. We'll get Danielle back as soon as we can. Absolutely.
Well, hopefully this week we have 2 winners at least coming.
There's going to be one. Someone's got to win. But actually, no. It could be a loss. It could be a loss to win the Lions, too.
But I'm just saying there's going to be – hopefully the Bears – maybe we get 2 winners next week. Bears, Lions.
Bears aren't beating.
Sure.
Bears aren't beating the
Cardinals. Or we might just have – one winner and the Lions Vikings tie. So who knows?
It'll be great for content if the Vikings lose. I can tell you that for sure.
I'm looking
I will be unhinged.
Unhinged.
There'll be a 30-minute rant on that one.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, it'll just be red. You'll just come. My face will be the color of my hoodie. All right. Well, my name is Cooper. I go by Uneducated Takes. The guy right above me, that's Andy. He does most of the work on the 1s and 2s here. Andy, what do you go by?
NFL Outdated.
There we go. And we got Gridiron over here just getting deep into the Lions. He is digging in. He is not slouching. He has good posture.
These are my Lions now.
Yeah.
They're my Lions.
Yeah, absolutely.
True.
What do you go by?
At Gridiron Grubb.
Gridiron Grubb. All right, excellent. Oh, nice. And we had a long show today for only having 3 people. That's good stuff. That's good stuff.
So, well, very good. We will see you guys next week.
All right. See you guys next week.
Take it easy now.
Take care, guys.